Greetings, guys, gals, non-binary pals, and all you other colorful cryptids out there, and welcome to Scrubhaus Video Club Live. I'm back. I'm one of your hosts, Blowcat, but you can call me Adri because we're friends. And with me, as always, I have
Skunk Rocker, and I'm always here. Apparently, I will never get away. I'm stuck inside of this. I'm stuck inside of this cuboid, this rectangle for the rest of my life.
Ah, yeah. Speaking of Cube, Japanese Cube remake trailer looks pretty good.
We will get to that. We'll talk about that when we get the news. But yeah, no. Tonight's topic is cartoons that were made into movies.
Yes.
As you know, compared to the other way around.
Yes. Which we could have done the other way around. We know that, and we probably will in a future episode, but we want to get a little more in depth with that first. Can't really talk about a series if you've never really seen it. So,
yeah, there was two that came up. One that I need a refresher on, and one I've never seen when we were discussing that.
Absolutely,
and we want to see them. So instead, excuse me, sorry, I just ate. Instead, we're talking about cartoons that got made into movies, and most of the thoughts that I had in my head on this subject were, you have a cartoon and you make it into a film and it turns into a live action. They always do that.
Yeah.
You look at like Dragon Ball, and then they made Dragon Ball Evolution.
Yeah.
Oh, it was live action, and it was terrible. And then you had like Garfield. They made that, and it was a cartoon. Well, it was a comic strip first, then it was a cartoon, and then they made it into a live action movie. And then same with Alvin and the Chipmunks. You know, it was very weird to me. There are movies that start out as cartoons and then that stay cartoons when they make a movie, but those aren't as nearly as interesting. Because all it is then is it's just like a hour and a half to 2 hour episode of the show.
That's true, but that's not always the case. Sometimes, things do get changed, and you end up with like take for instance the My Little Pony movie from the 80s. And I know it's kind of weird that this is the first place that I go, but it's strangely dark and it doesn't seem anything like the series. Like there are times where things change, but.
And you had Beavis and Butthead. Like Beavis and Butthead, right. America was not. It wasn't. It was a narrative. It was a full storyline from point A to point B, and they only had the one music video scene. Mm-hmm. So it was different, very different. But
filmed by a man who
other things.
Who thinks vegan is non. What is it? Oh, he thinks that being vegan is metal. And I'm not saying that it isn't. I just think it's a funny thing to think about someone saying.
What, Mike?
No, actually, Rob Zombie, who was like the director of that little part there. It was all based off of his love of Ratfink artwork.
Yeah.
He does. And hello.
Hi.
Twitch land out there.
Static is here. So, what's one of your favorite movies where they did something like that? Like cartoon and made it into a film?
Well, mine, it actually calls back whenever we did a video podcast quite like this as well, when I told everyone that they should drop LSD and watch the Richie Rich movie.
Oh.
So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to zoom right in on the Richie Rich movie. It's pretty weird. There are a lot of things about Richie Rich that are so absurd, yet kind of poke fun at capitalism in a very specific way. It's very weird for it to be a children's film. For anyone that's not in the know about this movie came out in 1994, and it starred Macaulay Culkin and actually had his younger brother in it, as a lot of Macaulay Culkin movies actually did. It's just people, they're not super aware of that. But essentially, it's him, it's John Larroquette, and one of my favorite actors no one really talks about anymore, Edward Herrmann. And Richie Rich, big rich kid, somehow has an operating McDonald's in his basement that's constantly working, a roller coaster at his house, and his parents essentially kind of get they tried to get blowed up, and they end up crash landing on an island whenever they're on a trip by a corrupt businessman, and the corrupt businessman worked for the company he wanted to take over, but Richie decides that he's going to take over. Richie and his butler. And there's some pretty awesome scenes in the movie. Now, Richie Rich is a really weird one whenever it comes to cartoons, because Richie Rich was a cartoon of like the 80s. And no one ever really thinks about the cartoon. They always think of the tie-in with the original Sabrina the Teenage Witch. I think with Harvey Comics, I think it was called.
Archie?
No, it was Harvey. It's not Archie. It's the same people who put out Casper the Friendly Ghost.
Oh, I thought you were talking about because Sabrina was Archie.
No, Sabrina was Harvey. Sabrina ended up becoming part of Archie whenever Archie bought the Harvey stuff. But Harvey was Casper, Sabrina, and Richie Rich. Those were the three big comics that they had. And I think they also did the Ghostbusters cartoon that has nothing to do with Dan Aykroyd. the other Ghostbusters cartoon. Anyway, based on that, I had a weird 80s cartoon series that was based off of it, and somehow the popularity or pseudo popularity of that coming back in the 90s because Cartoon Network becoming a thing and them showing these weird reruns, that was enough to strike a deal for them to create a Richie Rich movie. In that movie, you should absolutely do some kind of inebriant and watch at some point in your life. Pick whatever you like and do what you do and just enjoy some Richie Rich. It's fun. It's stupid, but it is very fun.
The one that I was going to bring up, I think, is the quintessential. We took a cartoon and we made it into a movie, and that's Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Yeah, I'm actually in my 30s.
I love that shirt. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles was that was a groundbreaking film for multiple reasons. Mm-hmm. You know, for one, I mean, the special effects were amazing. They're kind of dated now, but back then, you really believed that there was a 6-foot turtle.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Talk and eat pizza, and their rat daddy.
And the first movie has a lot to do with the comics too, so it has a lot of darkness in it, which actually works really well in its favor. And you get all of the beautiful New York nighttime scenes when New York was this grungy, pre-Giuliani New York City. It's just I would say a setting that I love to see because it's so ingrained into so many movies. Specifically the 42nd Street area and stuff like that. I love seeing that in film. And they did that shit good.
It was a fantastic film. I mean, just the mood lighting of everything. Even during the day, the scenes that are shot during the day, you look at that and you feel like it's this is not just the fact that it's New York City. It's larger than life. It's something special. I really, really dig the aesthetic of the first film.
Second one's okay. But the first one is
the second one's okay. Not the third one.
No, the fourth one is pretty solid. I do consider TMNT the fourth one in the series because you do see even the lamp from 3 in the stuff, and I thought that one was pretty good. But yeah, 3 wasn't great, and is I don't want to say it's problematic, but it seems like it might be given current standards. And 2 is just a lot more kiddie. 2 feels a lot more like the cartoon, whereas 1 feels a lot more like the comics.
Yeah.
I like Teenage Mutant Turtles so much when I was a kid. My entire room, before I went through my Goosebumps phase, was Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And I even had a poster for the first movie on my ceiling that I would look at night before I went to sleep. So I was pretty big into that film whenever I was a kid. It was one of my favorites.
It's a good movie. It was a really good film, and that's one of the cool things about it is that's one of the shining examples of going from a cartoon and then doing a live action, like full feature length film. There are definitely some bad examples.
Oh yes, there are, and
Garfield.
I'll get into a couple of them, I'm sure. See, Garfield's not even the one that I was thinking of.
Alvin and the Chipmunks.
If you want to move forward, I can go ahead and lay one down for you.
Oh yeah, go for it. What
Mr. Magoo.
Oh, Mr. Magoo. Yeah, it's not a.
So Mr. Magoo is this spectacle of a movie because, first off, let me.
That was a good pun.
Let me start off by letting everyone know that Mr. Magoo. Who do you think a movie like Mr. Magoo would be directed by?
Who do I think?
Yeah, somebody tells you there's a Mr. Magoo movie. What type of director do you think would direct Mr. Magoo?
I mean, my first thought would maybe be like Joe Dante or Chris Columbus.
It's weirder than that, bud. It's Stanley Tong. It's the guy who directed Rumble in the Bronx, Jackie Chan's First Strike, Super Cop. It was his only American film. And his American film debut, which, I mean, his movies were imported over here, but this is his only shot in America produced by the United States Film. And they spent $30 million to make a Mr. Magoo movie starring Leslie Nielsen. And they didn't even see $28 million back in the box office. That's how bad that they didn't even make their amount back. Not only that, it started to get picketed because a lot of people felt that it was like it was very derogatory towards people with disabilities. So what does the Disney company, because this is a Disney movie, what did they do? What did they do to make this seem okay? They put a disclaimer at the end of the movie saying that they meant no harm. That's what they do.
Well, the idea behind that's literally the idea behind Mr. Magoo is that he's blind. Like,
yes.
I don't. Oh God, I don't even.
Okay, he in that movie he foils jewel thieves by being Mr. Magoo. Somehow the jewel thieves are so stupid that they are foiled by a blind man who doesn't even know that there are jewel thieves around him.
Yeah,
he is completely oblivious to the plot of the film.
That's always been the thing with Mr. Magoo. Like, that's the point of Mr. Magoo. Like, he goes through adventures and he doesn't even know he's having them because and occasionally he'll open his eyes wider and he'll realize something's happening. And then, but he's still like, he'll be like, "Oh, I'm sorry. I'm terribly sorry. It's the one time, it's the few times that he'll open his eyes real wide, which, Leslie Nielsen does an amazing job of doing the Mr. Magoo, like opening his eyes real wide and being like, "Oh, I'm terribly sorry. I must be going the wrong direction," and turning around, and then his eyes close again, and he continues doing his thing. He's not actually blind. He's an old man who never opens his eyes.
Yeah. There is a gag in the movie that I remember because I did see this in theaters whenever I was a kid. That they installed like glasses style windshield on his car so that he could see while he was driving. But this movie is one of my shining examples of whenever I tell people that Malcolm McDowell would be in anything.
Is he in that movie?
He was in the Mr. Magoo movie. Absolutely.
It's like Jeremy Irons and freaking Dungeons and Dragons, which is technically that would be another example.
Actually, it is based on the cartoons. It's not actually based on the book series. Did you know that? Like a big portion of the film it takes place. Like there's like a bunch of Easter eggs and stuff that they put in there because they were big fans of the Dungeons and Dragons cartoon that tie it back to the lineage of that. Therefore, the sequel.
It is really based on so that actually means that it's legal for this conversation, which is a scary thought.
Also, Ernie Hudson is in Mr. Magoo, and our boy Ernie, he deserves better.
Ernie's in a lot of awesome things.
Yeah, but he didn't deserve to be in that.
He was in Airheads.
Yes, he was. Yeah.
Yeah, and so was Coach Snyder. He was in Airheads as well from Nightmare 2.
He was also in the
Um,
Crow.
Yeah, so there's another film that I thought this was the film that you were going to be bringing up. That I honestly, when you said you had a worse one than the examples I was giving up, was Cat in the Hat.
You know, I don't think that counts.
Why?
I've never seen a Cat in the Hat cartoon. I've only ever read the book. Is there a Cat in the Hat cartoon?
I'm pretty sure there is. I know there's a Grinch cartoon. There are several Grinch cartoons, but that Grinch movie was okay. I mean, it wasn't spectacular, and it was a lot of Ron Howard sucking his own dick. But
the only one that I can find is from there was one in 1971. Okay.
Yep.
Okay. I was about to say I only found one in 2010, but I did find out whenever I did some little Google foo here that Martin Short plays the voice of the Cat in the Hat in a 2010 thing called The Cat in the Hat. Knows a lot about that. So
he probably would have done a better job than Mike Myers.
Gosh.
But that movie sucked. If you haven't seen that, it's really bad.
There are parts that I think are funny. That's the problem with that movie, is that there are big swaths of that movie that are just absolutely terrible, and then they'll hit you with one funny line or one little stupid funny joke that sticks in your brain. Like Thing 1 and Thing 2 had so many different nicknames, and one of them was Chocolate Thunder. I don't know why I remember this. I just remember Thing 2 saying, Chocolate Thunder! And I always thought it was actually pretty funny. And then, of course, you have the memes that spawn out of it, but that doesn't necessarily make it a good thing.
Yeah, there's a lot of things like that.
I wonder what the Rotten Tomatoes score on the Cat in the Hat movie is.
I'm gonna guess somewhere around 20.
The Cat in the Hat audience score is a 49, but the critical score is a 9.
Well, if you average those two numbers together, you get around 25.
Sure. Average Metacritic score of 25.
Yeah.
I can't.
Hey, John. We got John's watching, and Grassy. She's watching too. Look, you mentioned Richie Rich earlier.
I did.
And then there's the sequel to Richie Rich.
Blank Check. Casper, kind of. Yeah. So that's the running that's the running theory.
Joke. The running joke is just that Casper is just Richie Rich.
Absolutely.
But dead.
Casper wasn't bad. I think Casper was.
Bad.
It was okay. The Casper is this running joke in one of my VHS groups though, because we were doing a holiday like gift exchange thing. You know, send tapes to this person. You send it. It's like a Secret Santa. And this one person literally got like a box of like Mike and Ike's and a copy of Casper on VHS. That's what they got. And it was like, we had a $20 minimum. And now the joke is, yeah, I'll just send up a copy of Casper. Like that's the running joke.
I got a great story about Casper. When I was in elementary school, occasionally they would do movie day.
Yes.
New movie day would be that we would go to the auditorium. They'd hook up a full-on film projector and they'd show us a movie. Most of the time it was Mary Poppins or, Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, something innocuous and older. Right. What happened was, and this is funny, they got Casper. And they showed Casper, and they just were like, it's a movie, right? They gotten it for cheap from one of the movie theaters that was local, and it was they were like, oh, Casper, it's a kids movie. Show kids movie. It's a movie about a friendly ghost. Well, the teachers were already getting nervous when the uncles showed up. Like they were already, that was already bad enough, right? Yes. But then of course you have the main bad guy in that movie, the woman who she wants to use the ghost transformation device thing herself, right? And when she does it and shows up as the evil witchy ghost to like try to destroy Casper and the other ghosts and everything else, she pops up and she's all Ghostbusters remake looking ghost thing, CGI ghost, and she says the bitch is back, and that crowd of kids, every single one of us started howling with laughter, because it wasn't because that line is funny. It was funny because we're a bunch of kids in elementary school, right? And that just got said in a movie. So, and oh man, you could just tell every single teacher, faculty member in that school at that moment was just all like, this was a bad idea. And it was really funny.
So Casper came out, you would have been 9 when Casper came out.
Yes.
So my question for you in this situation,
mm-hmm.
was that your first introduction to Eric Idle?
No.
Okay.
Absolutely not. I could, and here's the reason how come I can prove that for sure. I saw that movie in my elementary school when I was in the 5th grade, okay. Right? Now that a couple years prior to that, we were in the talent show, me and my sister, and we were doing Monty Python in the talent show. So we watched a bunch of Monty Python beforehand. So yes, I had already known who Eric Idle was.
My Eric Idle, like what introduced me to Eric Idle was European Vacation. That's I was really young whenever I seen European Vacation, but whenever I was not well versed in Monty Python by that point. So whenever Casper came out, that's who I said he was. Is I was like, it's the bike guy from European Vacation, and my mom got like upset at me and then forced me to watch Monty Python, and that's how that ended up happening, because he can't just be the bike guy from European Vacation. He has to be Eric Idle, because he was my mom's favorite Python, apparently. Which solid choice. Pretty solid choice.
So there is there's 2 Brendan Fraser films based off of Jay Ward cartoons. One is great, and the other one's just okay.
One of them has a problem that it tried to be too much like a cartoon, and that one would be Dudley Do-Right. And I don't even want to like really dive into that, because there's not a lot to it. They literally just try to make the cartoon into a live action film, and it's not that good because of it. It's just a big stinker, and it's unfortunate. But the other one, which is
George of the Jungle, was great, and they did a really like taking George of the Jungle and doing it is a really good send off of Tarzan, right? Yeah. And doing it because in that
Tarzan
style.
Had been popular at that point, right? Like had the Disney Tarzan movie come out at that point?
Good question.
Let me jump to the movie. That was in '97. When did Disney's Tarzan? Because it seems like a cash in.
They were both Disney films, so
Tarzan was '99. So George of the Jungle might have. George of the Jungle might have sparked them. Yeah.
We should totally do this. It was a good flick though, and it's got a lot of really quotable lines. I think everybody's favorite line from the movie is still that now is the point where we throw our heads back and laugh. Ready? But my favorite line in the whole film is like they looked at the scene with awe. Aw. No, the other awe. Ooh. That's a great scene.
I think the
whole movie is good.
There is a stark contrast to this movie, because whenever I think of George of the Jungle, for whatever reason, I also think of Rocky and Bullwinkle. And there was that terrible Rocky and Bullwinkle movie that came out. The main thing that I remember is Boris was played by
Danny DeVito.
No.
Was it not Danny DeVito? I thought it was.
It's George Costanza.
Is it George Costanza? It's Jason Alexander?
Jason Alexander played. Yeah.
I don't know why I was thinking Danny DeVito.
Speaking of Jason Alexander, there's a pretty funny Super Bowl commercial that has to do with Jason Alexander. I don't know if you've seen it.
No.
Okay, yeah, it's about like a hoodie with his face on it that a teen is wearing, and there's a scene where Jason Alexander pulls up and like it's changing expression as to whatever is going on. It's kind of funny. And then Jason Alexander just honks at the kid and yells, "That's my face! You can't wear my face! Give me back my face!" And the "Give me back my face" immediately makes me think of the fucking Watchmen movie where Jackie Earle Haley and his Freddy Krueger voice just goes, "Give me back my face." And that's all I can ever think of anytime somebody says that.
Oh, yeah. I forgot that was the thing that happened.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, there are other terrifying things out there that came out that are live action. Yeah, doing a live action movie of a cartoon. Obviously, Transformers, I think, is one of the more horrifying ones. It's holy fuck. Remember I think wasn't it the second Transformers movie they came out with where they put testicles on a robot?
Yes.
See, they shouldn't do shit like that. That's fucked up. And then of course there's your favorite movie and mine, the Garbage Pail Kids movie, which technically isn't even based off of a cartoon.
And how about let's talk about a good movie? Let's talk about a Speed Racer, the Wachowski movie.
I don't know if I'd say that was a good movie.
That movie is fucking awesome. I don't know what you're talking about. Have you watched the Speed Racer movie?
I did.
It is beautiful.
Oh, I'm not going to deny that.
It doesn't need to be faithful to Speed Racer.
I was going to say it's not Speed Racer.
It doesn't have to be. It's a fucking cult classic at this point. This movie is beloved. You need to go back and rewatch Speed Racer. No, that's 2 hours and 15 minutes of awesome.
No, I'm not disagreeing that it was. John says Speed Racer was done very well. Yes, I get you. I understand. It was done very well. But I watched Speed Racer as a kid. Like my dad introduced me to Speed Racer. That movie it's the same characters, but it's a different world, and it's very weird. It's jarring.
Speed Racer would be boring as shit as an actual movie. They made it good. That's what they did. This comes from somebody who was really into Speed Racer when I was younger as well. I think that they took the concept and they made the best fucking F-Zero movie that could ever be made. And I'm glad that it's called Speed Racer, because if it wasn't called Speed Racer, it would have never got made.
That was the thing. That it was basically the F-Zero movie. You're right.
And damn it, I will scream for the mountaintops. Speed Racer's a goddamn good movie. If you don't want me to talk about a good movie in Speed Racer, let's agree on one that is good then. Let's talk about Dennis the Menace.
Dennis the Menace is fantastic. Oh my God. Walter Matthau.
It's not just Walter Matthau.
He made that fucking role work so damn well.
He was a perfect Mr. Wilson.
I mean, just absolutely he there was a reason why him and Jadlow get put into
I love this comment. This needs to happen.
Oh, that would be fantastic. They need to bring Tricky Empire back.
And they still need to have they need to put the Dickies version of the theme song in it. That needs to be what's going on, because the Dickies.
So that's all. Dickies role. You put the Dickies into a movie, it's gonna be good. Look at
Killer Clouds from Outer Space.
Killer Clouds from Outer Space. Kick-ass.
And if Toxic Avenger 3 would have used the Dickies Toxic Avenger song in its theme song, maybe it would have been better to a lot of people. I mean, yep. I like 3. Don't get me wrong. I think 3 is great, but a lot of people think that it's the redheaded stepchild of the series. Maybe if you would have put that Dickies Toxic Avenger song in it, might have been a little bit better. Just a little bit.
Now, there's also, and I briefly brought this up, that there's also stuff that's based off of.
Well, hold on. I also want to go into some more of the cast and some things about Dennis the Menace, because Dennis the Menace is a movie that was near and dear to me when I was a kid. Right. And it does start with Walter Matthau. Walter Matthau is a fucking great as Mr. Wilson. Like it's like, I won't say that it feels like the comic strips because it feels more realistic than the comic strip. It's not as whimsical. But if you're going to make Mr. Wilson like a real person, Walter Matthau was damn perfect for that. But the standout star of that film in my mind is Christopher Lloyd as Switchblade Sam. Because Christopher Lloyd in that specific role is menacing, and he makes you forget that he's Christopher Lloyd, which is very hard to do because he's such a big personality. And for him to sink his way in there and to become that character in the way that he does, and he's just like, he's a bad guy in the way that a bad guy is a bad guy. He's everything that as a kid you think is a bad person. And he personifies that, and he's dirty, and he steals an apple from a kid at the beginning of the movie.
He did a really good job.
And it's funny because not only that, but you know who Dennis's mom was played by? Leah Thompson. So it was just a Back to the Future party.
Oh, right on.
Yeah. It's super cool. I think that it's a movie that doesn't get enough praise nowadays. I think that if you should show your kid Dennis the Menace, if you have a kid that's into family movies and it's something that you haven't thought about doing, you can sit down and watch it with them. You're going to love Joan Plowright's, role as Martha. You're going to love Walter Matthau. You're going to love Christopher Lloyd. You're going to love Leah Thompson. You're going to love just Dennis the Menace in general. I absolutely recommend checking that film out. It's just a movie that I feel has been really slept on. And it's one of the quintessential, like, really good kid movies that are made from cartoons/comics. Because it's both, right? Like, Dennis the Menace was an 80s cartoon, but it was a comic strip before that. So,
And if we're doing recommendations, I would recommend that nobody watch The Flintstones because it sucks.
I think the first one is okay. I want to give John Goodman the benefit of the doubt in almost anything because
he did a good job.
Same with Rick Moranis. It's weird that even Kyle MacLachlan, who's in that, because he plays the boss.
The plot of that movie is what sucks.
Yeah, but I feel like in that movie they were going off of a standard plot that all kinds of movies were going off of at that point in time. It's a smarmy guy trying to take over a business, etc., etc.
Yeah, it's just really weird. It's not what you expect when you think of the Flintstones.
I think it's exactly what you should expect because it is as cartoony as the cartoon, but it kind of falls in line like the Fist of the North Star live action film, where like you get too like focused on some of the cartoony aspects or some of these over the top aspects that it really takes you out of it whenever you see it in live action. Perfect example in the Flintstones movie is when they're bowling and he does the Twinkle Toes thing. They didn't have to put that in the movie. That part of that just, it really pulls you out of it.
I felt like the plot though was just it was a little too far. Like the idea behind like the smarmy guy running a business or whatever. Okay, there you go. Did they really have to have the Fred getting seduced by Halle Berry's character like that?
That didn't.
It wouldn't have been Scooby Doo. Another great example.
Johnson Scooby Doo. That's a great example.
First one was great.
Absolutely. James Gunn movie. I think the second one was pretty good too, but the first one, perfect casting.
Great twist ending.
Really self-aware, got away with a lot of jokes that it shouldn't have got away with. And that's because you had a seasoned trauma writer behind it, which is really crazy to think about. Somebody looked at the guy who made Romeo and Juliet and went, he should make Scooby-Doo. And I don't know how the fuck that happened.
And then, I like I said, my favorite moment of that movie is at the very end when you find out it's Scrappy Doo, and he's just all like, "I would have got away with it if it wasn't for you sons of bitches." And they close the door on him.
I mean, spoiler alert, but yeah, I'm pretty sure everybody's seen it by now.
If you haven't, I don't really care that I spoiled fucking 20-year-old movie on you.
I mean, there are some 20-year-old movies that if it's like a mainstream 20-year-old movie, I don't mind.
Yeah, that is one of them. One last thing I did want to bring up, like I was saying earlier, is there are a lot of stuff that's just based off of just straight comics. Obviously, you have the Marvel stuff, and DC and all of that. But there's some stuff out there that's really weird that you wouldn't necessarily think of. Like for example, Dick Tracy.
There wasn't an animated Dick Tracy show, but there was definitely, you're right, there were comics, there were audiobooks. I remember there was like live action stuff. I was slightly obsessed with Dick Tracy as a kid. I think there was a weird like and whenever you're a kid, everything feels like it lasts forever. It was probably like a 6-month period, but there was like a what felt like a long time whenever I was a kid that everyone loved Dick Tracy. All the kids loved Dick Tracy, but
1990.
Yeah, it was realistic. Probably only like 6 months.
Of the movie, yeah,
and the Warren Beatty movie that was strangely like a passion project of his. Like he really wanted to play Dick Tracy, so he like helped fund that, which is crazy to think about. Like of all the things to take the gamble on, he's like, no, it's fucking Dick Tracy. I got to play Dick Tracy, and it's like, all right.
Hey, and he, you know what? He did an amazing job, though. I mean, it was a good film, and obviously, you know, the special effects that they used to recreate those Dick Tracy characters as ugly as they looked was fantastic.
Hey, all right. Thank you very much for that, Dan. There was an old animated Dick Tracy cartoon. It was back in the 60s.
Back in the 60s. Oh, I didn't know that. It's good to know. Because Dick Tracy, I mean, Dick Tracy's character has been around since the 30s, you know, so it's not like. And then there's some other ones too. There's some comics that got made that aren't mainstream comics that got made into movies.
I mean, I brought one up earlier. If you want to dive into that, it was The Crow.
The Crow. That was the one I was going to say. Yeah. Because that was based off a comic series. A lot of people don't know The Crow was a comic before it was before it was a movie. Most people just know the movie.
There is a Crow film that came out before that film that was officially sanctioned by the creator of the comic, but it's more like a student project fan film kind of thing. So there's technically 2 movies based on the same arc in The Crow, and it's available on YouTube, I think. You look up The Crow student film, and you might be able to find it.
The other one that I was because everybody knows Judge Dredd. Right. Yeah. So I was gonna bring up Dread. The one I was gonna bring up was Men in Black.
Okay.
That's based off of a comic, and I've actually met the comics creator. He because he shops at the Best Buy I used to work at in Knoxville, and he's a weird freaking dude.
Yeah.
He's a very weird guy, but very sweet and very nice. Just very weird. You kind of get the sense whenever you're around him that he feels like Hollywood kind of fucked him, which is kind of true if you think about it.
Yeah, I mean, but Men in Black, it was a very underground comic prior to that. And I mean, there are a lot of movies based on underground comics. Like I could go for days. I mean, if you don't mind, I'd like to bring up Faust. You ever seen Faust?
I don't know what that is.
So, Faust, Love of the Damned, is it was a comic book series that led into a movie. The movie was created by Brian Usna, and it stars Jeffrey Combs.
Was it Reanimator?
No, it's called Faust, Love of the Damned, and it is fucking insane. The comics themselves are insane, hyper gory, over the top. And Brian Usna looked at that and went, I'm going to make that into a fucking movie. And he did. And it came out in like, I think in 2000? I want to say it was 2000. And I remember I watched it whenever it first came out. And my main thought was, Jeffrey Combs never ages.
He doesn't. I've seen him in stuff recently, and he doesn't. Yeah, he hasn't aged.
Technically, we mentioned it.
Technically, we mentioned Watchmen for a brief moment. I was going to bring it back up that I think that isn't Watchmen like the biggest. I think it was the biggest independent comic made into a film, probably, which is
Vertigo.
Awful if you want to be that guy.
I would say Vertigo is not really independent. At that point in time that the Watchmen came out, they were owned by DC.
But when the comic was originally released,
it was owned by DC. It was Vertigo. It was the Vertigo imprint. They were owned by DC.
Spawn is DC. Spawn is very DC. Spawn was DC.
Spawn is not DC. Spawn is Image.
I thought isn't that the same thing with like Vertigo? They owned by DC?
Image. Wow. Okay.
Really?
So Image. Is Marvel DC creators breaking off to create their own independent comic company. That's where Rob Liefeld and Todd McFarlane and Sam Keith and what's his name? The guy who made Savage Dragon. And Jim Lee all banded together to make Image. Image was a true independent. Vertigo was just an imprint of DC at that point in time.
Okay,
But
all right.
this is the answer.
Well, we already talked
Teenage
about it.
Mutant Ninja Turtles is probably the biggest independent comic turned into a movie in my mind.
But are they what brand? What comic company is TMNT?
Mirage.
Okay, who are they owned by now?
Mirage is its own company still. Well, I think maybe they're owned by IDW now.
See, here's where I'm getting confused because you have Spawn and the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles both have been in DC projects.
Yeah, I mean, that's because they're fucking owned by their creators and they can cross over, but that doesn't matter.
Oh, okay. Because I was wondering about that because Spawn was in Mortal Kombat 11 and Leonardo, or it might have been all 4 Ninja Turtles, but I was pretty sure it was just Leonardo. I could be wrong. Was in Injustice 2.
Yeah, those are just DLC characters. It doesn't matter. This right here that Dan is talking about, The League of the Extraordinary Gentlemen, that movie was so bad that it made Sean Connery retire from acting.
And,
that is a legitimate thing that happened. Sean Connery, he retired because of the hatred that he got from League of Extraordinary Gentlemen.
John said we did a Flaming Carrot comic. I think he means movie. You almost got one because Mystery Men was based off of Flaming Carrot and the Mystery Men.
Yep, you almost got one, and we've come really close to getting a Scud movie several times as well.
And technically, Ghost World is based off of a comic.
Absolutely, it is. Red. Wasn't Red an independent comic?
It was.
Yeah, it was.
I don't know if it was independent, but it was based off a comic.
Yeah, it published by Wildstorm. Wildstorm is technically an independent publisher, but they're owned by DC now. I guess they were still DC at that point in time, so it doesn't matter.
So when it goes the other way around, like Innovation would get
Scott Pilgrim.
Innovation would get the branding from different comic or for different movies, and then make them into comics. Which was
give us another Tank Girl movie. Thank you very much for bringing up Tank Girl, John. Give us another Tank Girl movie. I know that I need more Tank Girl
sex in my life.
Very, very deeply intertwined with gorillas, and probably never actually going to be putting up those rights. But I would love to see another Tank Girl movie,
especially after the first one did so well.
It did well, and it was actually relatively faithful. And that's.
I meant it was kind of it was barely a commercial success. Like it almost bombed.
It's a cult classic. It's one of those movies that got a second life.
Yeah, but I mean, and I, you know what? I want Rachel's director's cut version of that film because I want to see the scene with the prosthetic kangaroo penis. I want to see it. Come on.
So they're having the discussion. They're having a discussion about League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. I'm not saying it's a terrible movie. I'm saying that there was a bunch of fan backlash, and that fan backlash is what literally because the fans found it bad.
Yeah.
And did a bunch of hate talking on the internet, and that was enough to push Sean Connery into retirement. Now he did make a movie after that, but I felt like he made it at gunpoint. I don't know if you've heard of it. Give me 1 second here.
I didn't know he did anything after that.
He voice acted for this movie, and it is one of the worst movies that's ever been made. It was called Sir Billy.
No, never heard of it.
Sir Billy. Yeah, it's a retired veterinarian living in a remote Scottish village encounters a goat who he thinks is a dog, and an admiral who's afraid of water, and a beaver who is raised by rabbits. That is what IMDb tells you about Sir Billy.
Okay.
It's terribly animated CG.
As you do.
I don't think you understand how terribly animated Sir Billy is.
Oh god, these boots are falling apart.
The Avengers movie? You mean like the European Avengers movie?
Like the one with Steed.
He was in a lot of movies after that, though. He was in Entrapment and Finding Forrester. After that, it was just LXG was where he cut it. He'd done some voiceover work and did some. That's about it. He
So
did some extra voices in the From Russia with Love video game as well.
So the one thing I do want to bring up, right? The one thing I do want to bring up that I think is important is to say that you have anime being made into
Anime.
now. Dragon Ball Evolution notwithstanding, that one was terrible. But there are some other ones. Obviously, Death Note was huge, and
I didn't like it.
Continues to be huge.
I didn't like the. I didn't watch the
action films, so I don't know. I just found out because of this doing research for this topic. I found out there's a live action Initial D movie.
Yes, there is.
I want to see that.
We could totally watch that at some point. Yeah, that'd be cool. I wouldn't mind that. I hope it's full of Eurobeat.
Has to be. It's Initial D. Come on, you're gonna do Initial D. You got to have running in the '90s and gas and all that.
If you want to talk about that, I mean, I can start diving into some things and giving some recommendations.
Well, I was gonna say that I think wasn't the biggest one of this Ghost in the Shell. When Scarlett Johansson came out.
It's probably the biggest one in America.
Yeah, in America.
That being said, I'm sure that Japan there's a lot of big ones. Lone Wolf and Cub is probably a good one to point out for that because the Lone Wolf and Cub series.
Yeah, Lone Wolf and Cub is based off of a manga.
Yes, there's Mars Attacks back there.
Mars Attacks is not a.
It's based on cards.
Yeah, it's based off cards, but we did bring up Garbage earlier. So yeah.
Well, there were comics in the 90s prior to the movie as well. Topps was trying to cash back in on Mars Attacks prior to the movie, so technically there were comics, so that could have.
Good movie, very good movie.
Gaunt's is one of the animes turned into live action film. I recommend checking out. Another one, Old Boy.
Old Boy, yes. Oh my God, Old Boy. But with the original Old Boy, not the remake. The original Old Boy. The remake
doesn't need to exist. It's so weird that it does.
And it's very good. So
I know it's a typo, Dan, but I'm going to call it bubblegum from now on. Thank you for the new word.
Then there's weird ones where they change so much, but they change it for the better in a weird way, like The Mask. Because
I think of them as two separate properties.
Yeah, they are
personally,
because they split off so much from each other. The original Mask was the mask turned you into basically you had no inhibition.
Turned you into a psychopath.
Yeah, you had no inhibition anymore. So you did the first thing you could. Sort of like that movie Mayhem that came out a year or two ago, where you just do whatever you want. But you have the magical cartoon powers of having the mask on to be able to do those things. Whereas with the movie, they were like, we're going to go with a more lighthearted bent. Like, yeah, he still has those immediately do the first thing that comes to his mind deal, but he's not a bad person like he was in the comic. Stanley in the comic was already a psycho before he got the mask. The mask just brought it out of him.
And he just slaughters so many people too. I really like it. I really like the comics because they are really edgy, but they're like really sticking it to the comic publishers at the time, and it really makes sense for it to be the way that it is. It's a lot like comics used to be policed so hardcore. There's so much stuff you couldn't show or do in comics, and I'm so glad that that's been broken nowadays. Hell, mainstream comics can be chock full of nudity nowadays. It just happens. They just have to slap something on there that says mature audiences only, and then they'll slide it out the door. It didn't used to be that way.
They had the comics code back in the day, fucking everything up.
Now, we're about to get to the point that we need to move on. And before we move on, I need to bring up the one movie that I love and you love that's based off of a cartoon that isn't good, but we love it anyway.
And that would be?
Masters of the Universe.
Masters of the Universe, yes.
The movie that pretty much killed canon. They invested way too much money into it. And so much money that they couldn't even film the ending the way that they wanted to. That was filmed on a shoestring budget on a soundstage. It's not what the ending was supposed to be. The amount of movie that they invested in it, they didn't see a return in that, and that is pretty much what killed canon as a company. They had so many big plans. They were trying to just cash in, and it just came at the wrong time. The movie would have done probably pretty well if it would have been 2 years earlier. But Masters of the Universe was dying as a craze by the time that the film had finally come out. And it's a very unfortunate thing. But in the wake of Canon, we have so many production companies that are like Canon nowadays. So
it's a cult film. Like it's a cult classic. People
most
love
things
it.
with Dolph Lundgren in it are.
Yeah.
Let's be honest. It's weird that Dolph Lundgren is like this cult actor. But I think we need to go ahead and stop talking about that. Let's move on here.
We're gonna drop into some pop culture news real quick before we start taking questions from the audience. I know you had a couple of things.
I do. The first thing I want to bring up is Young Rock has casted several people to play several people.
If you don't know about this, it's a TV show, right?
It is a TV show that chronicles the life of Dwayne Johnson whenever he was a kid. It's going to be. You made the joke, everyone hates Chris. Yeah. And actually, it does kind of feel like that. But as of recently, they have casted people to play young Vince McMahon. Doesn't look anything like Vince McMahon. They cast somebody to play Andre the Giant. They did as good as a job as they can.
I was going to say, he looks weird, but I mean, he looks kind of like Andre the Giant, and he's freaking huge, so hey.
That's true. We have a guy that looked vaguely like Macho Man Randy Savage. I think when he opens his mouth, then we'll be able to tell if he's a good Randy Savage. He kind of has the looks. We'll see. Now, the big one.
The Iron Sheik that they cast.
Guy.
Holy crap.
This
he
guy
looks just like Cheeky Baby. He looks just like Cheeky Baby.
He also was a body double. Whenever they did that weird promo in 2015 for the Terminator movie, where they like went back and they reshot the scene of the Terminator walking up and asking for the clothes from the punks, but of course they didn't have Bill Paxton. And he walks up naked, and then old Arnie comes in. The battle between those two, they're literally using this dude's body. This dude was big enough that they're like, he's Arnie. So that's a big thing.
I've seen this guy. I've seen a photo of this guy doing like posing and weightlifting and stuff. And I mean, it's incredible how much he looks like Iron Sheik, but it's also incredible how just cut and massive this guy is. And he's huge. And of course,
the entire Samoans, all of them.
The Samoans look like the Samoans. It's perfect. I was staring at him going like, they somehow get these guys back from the dead. Like, holy shit.
I find it interesting that I'm interested in a television series.
I'm gonna
definitely check it out.
It's gonna be 10 times better than Young Sheldon.
Yes, hopefully. Next piece of news. We have a new trailer for Oddworld Soulstorm. Now, if you know anything about me and probably anything about Skunk, we actually love the Oddworld series a lot. We quote it all the fucking time because it's infinitely quotable. It's super fun.
Follow me. Okay. Work.
But Soulstorm, it's actually a new Oddworld game, which is something we haven't had in a while. They remade.
They remade the first one.
They remade it's a mixture. It's kind of a mixture of both of them. It's not just Apes Odyssey. There's a bunch of Exodus stuff in there as well. Yeah, and on top of that, they also remastered Stranger's Wrath. Munch's Odyssey got released on a bunch of things. Stranger's Wrath is worth playing. It's a really good first-person
Stranger's Wrath has the best weapon I've ever seen in my life, which is you literally fire skunks at people. Like, you shoot skunks at them and they explode and there's gas. It's awesome. And the skunks will actually, like, sit there and, like, yell at you and stuff. It's great.
Just want to gloss over the fact that there was a new Justice League Snyder Cut trailer.
Oh, that, yeah.
Where the Joker literally says we live in a society.
The way he said it, though, Leto's Joker, the way he says it is just all like, we live in a society, blah, 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 blah. Isn't that right, Batman? And I'm like, what is this fucking voice he's putting on? This doesn't sound anything like the Joker. Stop trying to be an edgelord, you fucking weirdo. And he looks so much like the Arthur Dent Joker that I'm just like, so weird. It's fucking weird.
It's gonna be bad. I'm calling it now. The original one wasn't good. Newsflash, everybody: Zack Snyder doesn't typically make good movies, and this isn't gonna be an exception.
Keep giving him the fucking job. I don't understand.
So, one big piece of news: Agoraphobia, which is a horror movie that stars Tony Todd, has been in litigation hell for several years.
Yeah.
It's finally available. It's finally out there for streaming. So Agoraphobia, which is this movie that everybody's been wanting to see, it's finally out there. I don't know anything about it. I haven't got to sit down and watch it. Willy's Wonderland has come out as well.
Yeah, that's one we're gonna watch soon.
And I haven't got to see those. And then the last piece of news I just wanted to bring up is Japan is remaking Cube. There is a trailer. Go watch it. It looks fucking awesome. And I want this movie so bad.
I love Cube. I love Cube. Oh my god, I love Cube. And this is one of the few times that I can point and say, okay, we're taking a North American film, right? Taking a Canadian movie, and Japan's remaking it, not the other way around. So
which
this
I think could
so
become
Japan's going to put their cultural spin on it, and
it'll probably also be a bit more extreme.
Oh my god, I can't fucking wait! It's
because Cube, while extreme, was also still pretty subdued in some of the things that it was doing, because it was still trying to appeal to a mainstream audience. In Japan, more extreme things are more socially accepted whenever it comes to film, so it might be more intense.
We gotta, yeah, Mythos just said the auto mod thing sucks. We gotta fix that. We haven't fixed it yet.
Somebody try to say,
we keep talking about it, but yeah, because that happened last time. So questions from the audience. We got a few minutes left. We'll take some questions from all of you wonderful people that are watching. I can see that Mythos and Grassy are in here, and Dan and John, and Carl left. Joe Dog was here for a second. So if you guys have any questions, you can ask us anything. We don't care.
Yeah.
No, I'm super excited for Cube. Cube's
I am
too.
Good. Yeah.
It's so right. Let's see. Do we have any questions? Favorite Valentine's Day scrub? Well, we weren't going to talk about Valentine's Day. It is Valentine's Day today, but I guess we'll talk about it. My Bloody Valentine.
My Bloody Valentine. Both of them are pretty solid. That slasher film called Valentine was pretty good too.
I say Valentine 3D specifically because of Jensen Ackles. I mean, anything with Jensen Ackles in it is right here in my heart. Apparently, on Instagram, Jensen Ackles and Misha Collins were being weird, saying that Dean and Cass from Supernatural are getting married.
So Dan asks, do you think live-action Astro Boy movie would be possible to do decently? Yes.
Didn't they do a live-action Astro Boy movie?
No, they did an animated Astro Boy movie. Now, while I do think that they could possibly do a decent Astro Boy movie, I don't think they should. I think that we are far past Astro Boy being relevant enough for them to make a movie of it and see some kind of turn of profit. So if somebody were to go out of their way to make an Astro Boy movie, I don't think that they would pull in the money that would be needed for it to be decent. So either A, it would be low budget and terrible, or B, it would put somebody out of commission completely.
Oh, Dan brought up, so we meant to talk about Popeye.
Yeah, we did. we prior talked about Popeye.
Yeah, Popeye is great.
Popeye is weird.
Weird fucking movie. But beautiful casting choices on all parts. Robin Williams was an amazing Popeye. And put the comment up. Shelley Duvall is Olive Oil. It worked perfectly.
Yeah.
She was the best choice for Olive Oil. It was like
a musical at times, and like Robin Williams was perfect in the role. It was all around one of the best adaptations.
And it's crazy that the Popeye movie, like when they filmed it, right? They filmed the Popeye movie, and then they just left the set, and people moved in.
Mm-hmm.
They turned it into an actual place you can visit and like shit. So, any more questions before we end this?
What is your favorite order from Popeyes?
My favorite order from Popeyes? I get them the chicken strips with the dipping sauce. Oh, was it? They turned it into a theme park? I thought it was. They turned it into a place you could live. They've done that with a lot of places. They did that with the Shire. Apparently, they took Shire and they just turned it into condos. I think they did that with
Set of Waterworld too. If you have a scuba tank,
They did that with a few sets from Star Wars too, didn't they? The newer Star Wars movies.
Maybe I know that some of the older sets were still there. To the point, whenever they were filming Force Awakens, they actually dug up. I think it was in Tunisia. They dug up part of the set that was there that had been buried by sand because it was part of the old Tatooine set, and they wanted to use it. They were able to dig it up and then kind of fix a little bit, but they wanted to look ran down. So, it was physical set and it had just been there for fucking decades.
And apparently some of those places that were out there and they filmed in like Africa and stuff like that, like people just moved in because they were like, hey, there's a building here. We need shelter.
Yep.
All right, well, I think that's it, guys and gals, non-binary pals, and all of our other favorite cryptids. We're going to call it a night, I guess.
Yeah. So don't forget, visit Patreon.
Yeah, we have a Patreon.
Donate if you can. If not, we understand.
Here's the Patreon. We're going to get better at the Patreon thing at some point. And if you want to do something else, you can go to our website. Our new store is up.
We got a bunch of new stuff. So I'd actually say, just go check out the store. Even if you've seen it before, go look at the new stuff that we have. It's pretty cool.
New stuff. There's a hat. There's 2 hats.
There's a lot of stuff. I would say make sure to please, if you have a YouTube account, so go ahead, like and subscribe.
Subscribe.
If you have a Twitch account, you might have Twitch Prime. If you have Twitch Prime, I don't know if we can accept that, but we'll see.
I don't know if we can do that. I don't think we have
like us on Facebook
followers, but I mean, we'll see what happens. And like and follow us on Facebook. We and also Instagram. Look, if you're on Facebook or YouTube, and if you're on Facebook, it'll be up here, right? And if you're on YouTube, it'll be down there. There's a list. There's this huge list of like literally everything that has to do with us, our Discord server, our Instagram account. Like follow us and like us on all that stuff. Because the more you guys do that, the more power that we get, and we can do better shows.
And join the fucking Discord.
Yeah, join our Discord, because our Discord, we do all sorts of fun stuff on Discord. We post horrible photos occasionally.
Mm-hmm.
like somebody just posted something about chowder, and I'm laughing now.
I get whatever it happened.
Definitely do it. Definitely do the thing.
All right, well.
All right, I'm gonna hit the credits button now.
All right, we want to thank everybody for showing up. Y'all have a wonderful day. Bye.